Once upon a time, we respected the backbone of our society. Our brave men went to the trenches. They mended stuff and made stuff. They joined the army. They worked in mines. They manned production lines. They drove lorries. They didn't make much money, but they made enough. And they'd be the first to turn out to carry your bag, offer a pint, defend the nation. They knew your name. They helped you with stuff around the house, and they laughed the loudest, and they made the sort of jokes that were so close to the bone, our sides split. But we gave their jobs away. We cut the army. We never replaced heavy industry. And where there were still jobs, we gave them to other men from other countries because they cost less. So instead, we gave our men benefits. We took their dignity and their ability to provide for their families and replaced it with a handout. We robbed them of all opportunity and also robbed opportunity from their kids too. Their kids who now have kids of their own. We told them they can't make their jokes anymore, not even for light relief. We told them that everything they were once loved for, and indeed that they loved, was now considered thick, racist, and out of touch. Wake up, we yelled. Get with the programme. Get woke, you Neanderthal. You've had it your way for far too long and you messed it up. It's only right that you are now punished. Your relatives enslaved us. You're a patriarchal beast. You fragile, overprivileged moron.
There's a clear reason this Alex Phillips clip is exploding online. And it's not because it's soft, balanced, or meant to please everyone. It's going viral because it voices a truth Britain's political class, media, and cultural elites have tried to silence for years. This isn't a speech about hate, it's about abandonment, and once you hear it, you understand why so many people feel this country no longer belongs to them.
When they now turn on the television, they don't see people like them. The songs they once sang are now cancelled. Nobody like them writes songs anymore. Well, nobody that would get a recording contract. We called them lazy after they had to make a humiliatingly necessary calculation that to provide for their family, maybe even give their loved ones a holiday from their shithole neighbourhood, it was better to not work and claim benefits instead. When they tried to tell us how much they were hurting, how they felt overlooked, using the only words that they had, we called them racist. They didn't get the latest memo from the overpaid London PR consultant about what language was acceptable and which viewpoint was allowed to be held, how to work the ever-changing system to fit in. Of course, they're slow learners, and they also don't have protected status. They're monsters. So they tried at the ballot box to change things. 3 times they voted Conservative because they promised to cut immigration. They backed Brexit because that would put them first for a change. They saw that those in charge who hadn't been listening for decades were finally made to listen. And oh, did they listen. They then did everything in their power to bully and to shame, to silence the voices of those men, to frame them as a threat, to intimidate them and censor them. And so day after day, night after night, they watched their towns change irreparably. They watched people from other countries being given houses and doctor's appointments, so surely it must be their turn next. Surely. These other people were showered with the loving glow of just being wanted. Yes, wanted. But also actively cheered for. Refugees welcome. Black Lives Matter. Who are these people? They didn't get a chance to get to know them because those people didn't learn English. They couldn't find them at the pub, but it must be their fault because they didn't welcome them enough. They didn't understand them enough. That's right, it's because they must be racist. They then saw members of those communities complain still and witnessed superhuman efforts made by people in power to listen to them. And yet, some of them still riot when they don't get their own way. Some of them commit crimes, but when they do, it's not their fault. They just need to be better understood. Those people have been through things that none of us can relate to. They're disenfranchised. They have mental health issues. And it's probably your fault, you lazy white racist. That, dear friends, that is the story of working class England. And I hope you enjoyed it. You know, some might call it a lived experience, but for those in it, it's an experience barely worth living.
For years, we've been told that Britain's biggest issue is how much privilege certain people supposedly hold. But Alex Phillips turns that story upside down. And that's why this speech lands so hard, because what she's describing isn't privilege at all. It's loss. She speaks about the men who once formed the backbone of Britain. Men without fancy degrees or comfortable careers, but men who built things, repaired things, defended the nation, and held communities together. Miners, soldiers, factory workers, driversmen who never asked for praise, only respect. And slowly, that respect was taken away. Industries were closed, the army was reduced, factories vanished. And instead of replacing those jobs, the system brought in cheaper labor and told its own people to adapt or step aside. When they couldn't adapt, they weren't helped to rebuild. They were placed on benefits and then ridiculed for needing them. That's the part many don't want to confront. Because once you strip a man of his ability to provide, once pride is replaced with forms and handouts, you don't just erase an income, you erase identity. Families lose purpose. Generations become trapped. And when those people tried to speak, they were told their jokes were offensive. Their culture was shameful. Their opinions were dangerous. Traits they were once praised for were suddenly labeled backward, stupid, or racist. They weren't coached by the media. They weren't taught the right words. They weren't invited into the conversation. So they went to the ballot box. They voted Conservative. They supported Brexit. Not out of malice, but because for the first time in decades, someone acted like they were listening. And what came next? They were attacked. Their votes were described as a danger to democracy. Their worries were brushed off as bigotry. Their anger was treated like a disorder. Meanwhile, Alex Phillips highlights a double standard few want to admit exists. Other groups are encouraged to speak about lived experience. Other groups are heard, funded, amplified, and protected. Riots are explained away. Crime is contextualized. Failure is blamed on trauma. But when working class England suffers, they're told it's their own fault. They turn on the TV and don't recognize themselves. They walk through towns that feel unfamiliar. They're told to celebrate change while receiving nothing in return. And when they finally ask, "What about us?" they're branded villains. That's why this speech matters. You don't have to agree with every word to see the truth at its core. A country that refuses to face the pain of its own people will eventually lose them. Alex Phillips isn't offering comfort. She's telling an inconvenient truth. And that's exactly why so many people feel seen by it and why so many others are desperate to silence it.